Welcome to your life coaching and personal development masterclass. It is important to note that this teaching is a building block for the perfect structure that you seek to become. With your patience and dedication, you surely will receive the insights that will help shaping your perspective towards having a wholesome life experience. So, let's get started. I will be teaching you on how our mind is an important tool to gain clarity. It's a very, very important tool, and it's very linked to the last point that I just dropped on why we need to gain clarity. Is living an abundant life. It begins with a mindset, right? It begins with a mindset. A mindset that is pre-built before adversity strikes, such that when adversity strikes, we do not lose our foothold and become like paper in the wind. So it's how do we gain clarity, right? That's what most people are here for. How to gain clarity. How do we have access to light? In other words, how do we gain insights for the different areas of our lives where we feel stuck or where we feel at the crossroads? How do we access light when our hearts are so heavy and when everything is seemingly dark, right? So I figured some amazing pathways to gaining clarity when we're in the streets. And the first pathway would come from the mind, is the subject of the mind. And this is a very powerful subject that can actually be an entire course module in itself. It actually is the subject of mind, subject of limiting beliefs and all of that, mindset, right? Because as with most subjects in life, it is very important that we understand the power of the mind, where the mind comes in dealing with, the different aspects of our lives. The mind is the legislative seat of our lives. The mind is such a powerhouse, such a force in the human existence. Our minds are so powerful that it is our navigation system. Our minds are the compasses of our lives. So our minds must be fed with the right level of information and exposure, because our minds are actually the compartments of our hearts. And if your heart is ailing and you have the wrong mindset, or you are loaded with the wrong information, or you live with a limiting belief system, or there is anger, hate, bitterness, malice, and all forms of clutter, then your life will be ruled by clutter, which will choke out your productivity and drastically reduce your output in life, if not derail the course of your life completely. Right? And this is why we have been told to guard our hearts with all diligence, because that's where the issues of life flow from. So how does your mind have to do with gaining clarity? First, we must feed our minds with knowledge, with knowledge, truth, and positivity about how life happens. We must grow a mindset that states that life happens in seasons, but seasons come and seasons go. So surely there must be an end. Okay? There must be an end. There's a goal. There's something, you cannot see it, but there's an end. And the anticipation of that end is there to give us hope. Is a mindset that we must build. You can actually call it a mind trick. And it really does work, because it puts you in a state of calm and less agitation while you are trying to find a solution for your situation. So you're finding a situation, but you find a solution, but with the knowledge that, there will surely be an end. Like the popular saying, this too must pass. Okay, the storm will pass. The haziness will give way. The dark clouds will pass away. You've got to have hope. You've got to look towards something. Okay, this is something that has worked for me for so long. Okay, it's a phase and a season. It talks about, that no matter the haze and the confusion right now, there is light at the end of a tunnel. The darkness will end, the morning time will come. And in this time, you just tell yourself that in this time, I will keep trying what I can. I'll keep looking for solutions, or I'll just keep holding on until the dark clouds pass away. And that hope, it gives hope. It gives hope that is unexplainable. Another mindset that we must grow is that really life does happen. Life does happen. And we must all come to the realization that life can be cruel and unfair. And truly, we've all been forewarned about this by sages, right, that have gone ahead of us, our wise ones from the older generation, that life really does happen and can happen to anyone. And I'm not saying that you should live in anticipation of the worst. No, never. We should actually guard ourselves and pray against evil, right? But I'm speaking of living in preparedness, and just preparedness. And I'd like to draw inference from the Bible about Jesus, when he said to us that in this world you must face tribulations, but don't worry, I've overcome the world. In other words, you will overcome, right? So just know, life happens in seasons will come, they will go. Okay, life happens, and it can happen to anyone. So your case is not the worst case. Don't worry, you can overcome. And that will bring me to the third mindset that I'd like to talk about, which is the problem solver's mindset, or what I'd like to call the overcomer's mindset. We must learn that there is nothing that life throws our way that we do not have the capacity to overcome. So if you faint in the day of adversity, it simply means that you had no will or little will. You had no strength or very little strength to fight. But when you know and say, you see, I have the capacity to come up with ideas. I have the capacity to go through this. I have the capacity to solve this problem. I have the capacity to create solutions that are lasting, even though I cannot see them right now. When you say that you have the capacity to overcome because there is nothing new under the sun, that knowledge that someone else has been in this spot before, someone has been faced with this type of situation, that knowledge that there's really nothing new under the sun. Nothing new. No new challenge. It's just new people facing these challenges, right? That helps you to see that there is surely a way out of the quagmire. And all that is left is just to find that way. But we might have to develop this overcomer's mindset, this thing that says, I am going through this because I have the capacity to. Because really, there is nothing that comes our way that we do not really have the capacity to triumph over or to overcome. Nothing. It can beat us to the ground, make us sad, really unhappy, but out of the dust we are able to rise. And we must have that mindset. Okay? See, like I said, the subject of the mind, I've been on one topic, the mind. The subject of the mind can be an entire module in itself. But I just felt it would be a good thing to introduce it here so that it can form a good foundation for the remaining points that I'll build upon, the remaining pathways to gaining clarity. Okay, so the first way to gaining clarity is by developing and training your mind, and building the right mindset on the subject of clarity. And the second pathway to gaining clarity is by writing. Write. Just write. Don't be lazy to write. I cannot count how many answers that I've gotten from within just by writing. Writing is so powerful. I tell you, it's spiritual. Writing is powerful. Journal. Write your thoughts. Journal them. Write your concerns. Write your fears, your problems. Just write it down. It doesn't have to take a pattern. Don't write like you're writing for an essay or a competition. No. Just write. Write in a way that you're the only one who can read it, but write. By all means, write. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pen and a paper. It could be on your notepad, your computer, on your phone, wherever. Just write already. I have had insights on how to make money. In fact, the insights for TALA also came by writing. Okay? And, beyond getting insights, by writing, journaling is a very, very good way to access light through hindsight. With the benefit of hindsight, things you have written. There is insight, there is hindsight, there is foresight. You can actually gain insight for your foresight by having hindsight. And in our class on trauma, you will see that a good way to heal from trauma is actually by going back to your old journals and your documentations. And it doesn't matter where. On social media, Facebook, on blogs, wherever. But just these write-ups that you did by your own hand, from your own heart, that will remind you of how you started, what you were on about, and so forth. I cannot tell you how much this has helped me, just by making reference to my past write-ups. In fact, do you know that sometimes one of the causes of lack of clarity is also from our failure to have journaled? Because we've received instructions, in time past, things that we could have written about, things that were spoken in our ears, would have just quickly ideas, things that were passing through, different things, that we could have written about, that when the future situation is happening to us, if only we had just, pulled out that journal and read through, would have been fine. So writing is so powerful. When you go for therapy or counseling, you're advised to write. Write. It's therapeutic. Write your thoughts. Write your vision. Just write. Okay? Write your desires, your passion, your hope, your thoughts, your experiences. Write about your confusion. Write about not being able to gain clarity. Write as a form of therapy. Write for the future. Just in practical steps, you can write. You can start with a to-do list for the next day. That helps you gain clarity on what to do the next day. It's better to write the night before, like I do, or you wake up first thing in the morning to write. I don't really trust that because I forget some things. But write. And if you can't get clear, if you're not clear on what to write, just write and say, I am trying to write about my experience that I am facing with XYZ and I am confused right now. Just keep writing it. You will be surprised. Because, see, writing is powerful. And like I said, it is spiritual exercise. Writing is actually a conversation that you are having with your soul. And I would know this because I'm a writer too. So pour your brain on the paper. Brainstorm. Just write. It's powerful. Okay? A third pathway to gaining clarity is simply by sharing. Sharing. And sharing with the right people. We must learn to share. A popular saying goes that a problem that is shared is half solved. Especially when it is shared with the right people, like I'd like to say. Okay? When I started taking up projects and executing projects, I realized how powerful sharing was. Just by talking, I was gaining clarity. Just by talking. I was going to say, what am I even saying? There's some people who talk to me and they say to me, I'm not even calling you for counsel. I just want to talk. Unburdening helps you gain clarity. When you can just unburden, when you can just offload to someone, when you can just talk to someone. I don't mean talking in your room, which is okay, is one way. But sharing with someone, looking at the person's reactions, getting body language feedback, getting it's that powerful, right? TALA, the African Lady Ambassador Program, came by sharing. It grew in leaps and bounds by sharing the more. And I don't mean that someone was telling me, what to do. On the contrary, it was just by a word of response that, I'll hear from that person. Or just by bouncing off ideas of the team, right? Sharing is powerful. And sometimes, even just by talking to a kid, you'll be surprised how much light you can access just by doing that. I get people write to me from time to time. And when I send my responses to them, they go, wow, MJ, I never saw it that way. And I know. It's not because I have too much head. No. It's just the power of clarity. It's just power of sharing. Because you're somewhere in a fog, you really cannot see ahead. So sometimes your reasoning is beclouded. It's not because the other person knows better than you. But the person is not in your situation. The other person is not in your place. So share with the right people. Find people, partners, people that you can share with. Okay? It's really, really, really powerful. And I for people who say, oh, well, we can just talk to God. Just talk to God and be fine. Our very spiritual people. See, listen, even the Bible says that 2 heads are better than 1. 2 heads have a better reward for their labor. 2 heads. So, and I'm not speaking of Godhead. No, I'm not speaking of God's head. No. In fact, it says, confess your faults one to another and pray for one another. And in that way, you'll find healing. And might I add clarity? You find clarity, right? So please share with your friends, share with experts, share with therapists, just share. The fourth pathway to gaining clarity I discovered is actually an irony of the third one on sharing. It's by quietness, stillness, being quiet. Being quiet is powerful. Sometimes all you need to do is just pull back the curtain. Just step back, pull back the curtain and just step back and be still. And it can come either by meditation or by maybe just slowing down on the work, on whatever it was you were doing, on that relationship that you were in, just stepping out of it. Yes, you heard me right. It could be, cutting ties with someone for a while. Just for a while. Step back and breathe and think and see from outside. Okay? Quietness is powerful. It can be by meditation. Meditation will require that, you devote your time to, quietness and internalizing and meditating and introspecting, very powerful. Just a settled mind is the most capable of meeting the day's demands because it is guided from within. Okay? So your mind needs to settle. Meditate. You know what? Let me tell you a small story. This topic that I'm treating is actually a big one because, like I said, it attempts to cover clarity on all sides. It would have been easier if, I had to focus on if I say, okay, I'm teaching mental clarity. Or I'm teaching emotional clarity. I'm teaching, just like that, separately. But, it's a huge one, right? So before recording this class, I was faced with a lot of distractions. I think I said that earlier, especially with the things that are happening, around us in the country. And it was so tough trying to focus, I tell you. So tough. So tough. I'm like, am I going to be able to really do this? I would try to do this recording and really I don't know how to go further. I'd go online, try to make researches, go on YouTube, try to listen to videos, Brendan Burchard, listen to different people, see, okay, if they can help me, Les Brown, just listen, go to my old notes, I was trying. I would get only so little in a day. I'm telling you, just trying to record just one model. So it was that bad, right? And I kept telling the team, I was telling them, I'm so distracted. Working from home, my home office is not even helping at all. So each time I sat in front of a computer to develop a teaching note, it just wasn't working. And I really wanted to pour myself into this model, because it's the first model first off. And I wanted it to really have an impact. I want people to learn from it. So what I had to do was I had to use the method of meditation. It was quietness. This pathway, I employed it and I did achieve focus. Every single time I sat to prepare the note for 2 days before I finally prepared it, I will shut the door. I'll ask to be left alone, no noise. I'll turn off my mobile data and shut my ears out to the world. And I immerse myself in very cool music. And then I will do affirmations. Affirmation, which is one of the points that I'll take today. It's one of the pathways, right? But that was how I was finally able to create today's course. So meditation is so powerful. Quietness is so powerful. Just gaining stillness. Powerful. Even if it's just 5 minutes. 5 minutes is enough to remove some mental chatter and internal distractions. Something as simple as going outside to experience the calm and inspiration of nature. Just get quiet to get focus. You have to get quiet to get focus, to focus on your essential goals and to gain clarity for different areas of your life. Find your quiet spot. Okay? Yeah. So the fifth pathway would be the principle of start. The principle of launch, of the start, right? Principle of launching. The reason why some people are unclear is because they have perfectionism syndrome. Some people haven't just ventured. They are either scared of failure that may arise from their venturing, or really, yes, they can't really see the end of the road. But really, who told you would ever be able to see the end of the road? A good way to gain clarity sometimes is just by showing up and starting, taking action, launching, making the move. Just move. Because the truth is, you will never know until you do. I guarantee you, I know this much. This is the exact story of my life, of my talk show, of how I started. Started just by launching into the deep. As humans, we are wired with limitations. We cannot see the end from the beginning. We're not God. It's only God that can see. And it's also, the principle of the faith walk, that you just have to launch sometimes. You exercise your faith, places where, just put your feet. It's almost like you're stepping into water and you don't know how deep it is. Launch into the deep. So my talk show, I'd had failed promises, tossed my books away, and I stayed in the dark for about 2 years. And that's not because I didn't want to move. I was not passionate anymore. No, just because I really didn't know how to move and I was frustrated. My talk show dream was like a sharp pain in my chest. Each time I saw a talk show, I'd literally cry on the inside. Right? And guess what I did? I employed one of the pathways here. The first one I employed was sharing. I shared. I was just in a forum and I talked to my classmates, my schoolmate from high school, right? And I told him. And what I thought was a mountain, if you see, he looked at me very funny and he said, "Haba, babe, you can start this thing already now." And he just gave me a few ideas. And I'm like, me? Who would have thought that me? Me? Do you know the ideas that I had in my head? You know the platforms I was seeing myself? I didn't even think that I could start small. And he just told me how simple it was to start. If you're passionate about this thing, you will start. Just start already, right? And that's how I went back. Hey, journaling. I employed journaling. I went back to my books, and I had to read through again, read the vision. Everything was stirred up in me again, and then I tried something I'd never done before. I launched into the deep. So that's the story of gaining clarity is actually the story of my life. I shared, went back to my journaling, to help me get back on track. I'd written my vision and how I should go about it. And all I had to do when I brought it out now was just to tweak. I tweaked everything to suit my present reality. And then I launched. And it was into the deep, I tell you. I produced a show without training. I'd never done it before, but just passion. No camera, no lights, no editor, nothing. Just my passion, my vision on paper, and, amateur production method and my phone. But that was the beginning of greater ideas, the beginning of a bigger talk show and sponsors. It was just the beginning of beautiful things to come. So your clarity sharpens through action, okay? Your thinking gets muddled when you don't unlock your ideas and act upon them. So make a plan to achieve the clear goals that you have set. Set a goal. Make a plan to achieve it. Stop being a perfectionist. Stop saying, we want to figure it all out first. No. And I'm not saying that it's not okay to plan. Plan. I had a plan. But really, there's only so much you can do. I know that, I love excellence. I love excellence. And I know that excellence grows. I know. I know excellence grows. I can imagine America in the 80s and 90s, and they would have taught me, and they reached the peak of technology. Oh my goodness, But hey, they're still growing. Still growing. It grows. So I allow myself to grow. Grow. Don't be afraid of growing and learning. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to fail. Failure is part of success. The man who invented the light bulb launched into the project and he failed 99 times. And he said, see, I only learned 99 ways not to make a light bulb. And that's the mindset we must embrace about taking actions. Okay? So launch. Start. And the sixth way to gain clarity is by decluttering. To declutter. Declutter means to remove things that are not important. Get rid of the trash. Getting rid of the baggage. That's decluttering. Okay? It is the art of creating space and identifying what truly matters. And to achieve clarity in our lives, really we must learn to declutter. mentally, physically, emotionally, and otherwise. Okay? Declutter. Decluttering is carried out. We have to employ decluttering based on truth and logicality. We have to stay away from emotions that can keep us from decluttering properly. If not, we'll just be revolving around the same circle. Okay? So we start by saying, what are the things that are calling your attention? What are these things? What are all these things that you have around you that, are overwhelming you? Bring them, process them, place them on a scale, on a priority scale. Place them on a scale. Some things will have to give, surely. All right. So for level 2, you see, one of the things that we teach in level 2 is goal setting and rapid execution. And we teach it on the principle that, see, some things we teach a principle that, in order to focus and rapidly execute your tasks or your projects, some things will have to give. Some things will have to give. So what are the noises in your head? What are the things that are screaming for your attention that is keeping you from focusing? What is that thing? Itemize them, put them on a scale of preference from the best to the least, and then begin to eliminate from the list. And it could be shutting down social media for some time. It could be cutting down on unprofitable relationships. It could be quitting going out to parties and, outings, things that are taking your time, that are really not worth it. It could be something as physical as decluttering your space, the physical space. You might need to tidy up your physical space in order to function at maximum capacity. Because usually, our minds are wired to process everything that crosses our field of vision, subconsciously or consciously. So if your home, your work environment, is cluttered and messy, the mess and clutter can also result in a brain fog. Personally, I can't even have a good night's sleep in a cluttered space. Nope. That's to sleep. No. In a cluttered space, I can't. Right? There must be at least some semblance of sanity. So, and if you're like me, but still you're trying to work in a cluttered space, come on, that's a lie. You'll be unable to work effectively or even live thoughtfully, in a chaotic environment. So, clear the clutter. Reset, clear the clutter. Clear the emotional clutter, clear the mental clutter and the physical clutter. And I'm here to talk about the emotional clutter, right? So just clear the clutter, all right? For emotionally, emotional decluttering is one of the models that we'll be teaching in this course. I think maybe day 3, right? Emotional decluttering is one of the is where we deal with lessons on forgiveness, anger, bitterness, and pain. Maybe day 2, I think so. See, it's very important for us to declutter emotionally, to get rid of our emotional baggage. Things that have to do with anger, pain, negative emotions, their weights. If we must gain access to light, we must have space for light to come in and operate. Because most times, light is housed in purity, right? And in that session, we'll learn more. We'll learn more of how to get rid of emotional weights and baggages so that we can fly, so that we can soar. Because the weights would keep us from soaring, right? So let's leave that for the next, for the model where we deal with it, very, very holistically, and we hear real life stories, okay? And the last one would be affirmations. No, it's not the last one, but the next one. The next way to gain clarity is by affirmations. Powerful. One of the most powerful sessions we had in our self-discovery class was the class on the big why that we had with one of our facilitators, amazing guy. And he taught us that the primary reason of our words is not necessarily for communication, but it's for creation. And I said here in this course that really we are co-creators. We can create with our words. Our words can frame our worlds. So we can begin to use our words to frame our worlds. we can begin to speak into existence the things that we want to see. So instead of saying things like, oh man, I'm so stuck, I'm so this, you say, I receive insight. I'm going, we speak ahead. If it's on a goal, on a project, we begin to speak life to that project. We begin to take our place, in the scheme of things. And I know how hard this can be sometimes, especially when we are demotivated and when we are heavy and when we, I know. I lost my friend, Patrick. And that was the first time I experienced grief. I grieved. I was among grieving. I never experienced it. It's like a spirit. It was so heavy. And I remember that it was so dark and it was so dreary. And I said, I can't see the way. I knew that God, I can't see the way. I can't see the way. And I kept saying, how do we see? There was no light. I guarantee you, there was no light ahead. How do you explain such a traumatic death experience? It was a senseless death, caught in a crossfire and all the pain he had to go through. Oh no, it was such a senseless death. I just couldn't understand it. The wife, all of us couldn't. Our friends, nobody could. And I remember that one of the ways that I got out of that place, and in fact, it was the season where I was supposed to start the first session of TALA. Yes. And I remember we had set the date already. And I remember that I had to do this thing, go through journaling. I had been teaching on Instagram and on Facebook and writing and all of this thing. I couldn't come into contact with my vision and my purpose and the things that were chasing me and the things I was chasing rather, things that I was looking out for. I couldn't access light. But when I went back to those books, I started reading again gradually. And I started reading affirmations. I started speaking the words. I started talking. I started speaking. Affirmations are powerful. I will come out of this situation. This situation is going to bring about light. There will be clarity. There is light at the end of a tunnel. There will be day after this darkness. The darkness will pass and the light will come, with freshness of, fresh air, fresh breath. You speak all these things. You talk about, it has to do with your vision and you're distracted, and you do not know how to go. You say, I am even if you don't know what the vision is. You say, I am a visionary. I've been called for a purpose. I will achieve that purpose. You don't know what it is, but just speak it. Say it. If you're dealing with hurt and anger and pain, you tell yourself, I am getting rid of the hurt. It is painful, but I will get rid of it. I will be light. I will feel. If it is unforgiveness, you begin to speak it as painful as it is. I understand. You will call the name of these are practical ways to deal with it, and you will read it in your clarity sheet, in your cleanse kit when you get it. You will call the name of the person that you are holding in forgiveness, and you begin to speak to the person. You speak words. I forgive you. I let go. The thing that you did to me is painful. But you see, I am coming out of them rising, because the things that the devil plans for evil, God turns it around for good. And you speak into your life. You speak into the atmosphere. You just speak. Affirmations are powerful. Your words are powerful. So begin to employ them. Another thing that I do with affirmations is that I have it recorded. I have some of my affirmations recorded. Oh yes. Oh yes. Mary Jane, your words amplify to the nations of the earth. Kings come to the brightness of your rising. When you speak, people listen. Your words bring healing. They bring succor. They bring relief. Your words bring orientation to the minds of people, to the mind, all of that I speak. I build legacies for generations to come. You will speak these words. Speak affirmations. Speak. When you're speaking, you are opening up the air. You are clearing up the fog, clearing up the atmosphere over your life. That's what you are doing by speaking. The fog, the haziness, the mist, everything is becoming clear. It is becoming, open, is opening up gradually. It is what your eyes cannot see, but your heart must be able to believe. So believe it, okay? And that's what it is. And the last one, the last way to gain clarity would simply be by trusting. Trusting in yourself and in your capacity to deliver results, and also trusting in someone that is bigger than yourself. Because like I said earlier, as humans, our lives are wired in such a way that we really can never see the end from the beginning, right? It's what we all must be faced with. Seasons of intense confusion, moments of internal turmoil, confusion, hurt, all these things that will make us seem like we are stuck and, our lives and life has been unfair to us. That's how it is, right? But we must trust in someone bigger. We must trust in our own capacity to come out of the situation, because really we are co-creators. But also we must put our trust in someone bigger than ourselves, right? Sometimes it could be about a job that we're resigning from, and we just don't know what way to go, right? Trust in your capacity to do what is right, regardless. So sometimes it's just doing the right thing one day at a time. Trust in your ability. Trust in your value system. Trust in your ability to do what is right one day at a time. And when you do that, there is no how. Things will work out for your good. You will see the light again. You would make the right decisions. You will take the right step. That's it. That's it. So a good way to gain clarity is simply by trusting in your capacity as a human being, as a good person, as a co-creator, and also trusting in God. All right? The things that we shouldn't do when we are unclear. When you're unclear, never make erratic decisions. Try not to make erratic decisions. Try not to be impulsive. Try not to just rush. Pace yourself. Think about it. Come up with solutions. Share. Employ the methods that I've talked about. Just don't rush. Don't jump. Okay? Don't make decisions from erratic places. All right? Emotions can cloud our clarity. So it's important that we also understand this, that we need external help, okay, from right sources. Employ the methods that I have shown, to gain clarity, and then make a decision and trust your decision. Trust your decision. So that's one thing not to do when you are unclear. When you are unclear, try never to get into deep sadness. Don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it overwhelm you. Listen, at the death or after my friend died, one of the things that I did, because I kept going there, it was a grieving ground, a mourning ground, but at some point I got the instruction from within, don't go again. I had to separate myself from that situation, right? Sometimes you need to, like I said, you need to be still. Stop plugging to sources of distraction, sources of unclarity, sources that will further facilitate, your distress, right? Stop exhausting yourself mentally, physically, and otherwise, okay? Don't be tied down. And these, I'm just reeling out tips and tricks and points. Don't be tied down by people's opinions, people's attitudes of what you should do, what you should not do, and too many voices in your head. Yes, in the multitude of counsel, there is safety. But too many counsel can actually bring you confusion. So select, the people that you trust, who are your, how do you call it, fire lighters, who are your vision bearers, people you trust with yourself, with your ideas, right, with your vision or whatever it is, with counsel, and let them help you. Okay, I hope that this course has been treated from a very holistic and a very vantage point. I hope that this has helped you. It's been an amazing feeling, an amazing ride, just recording this course and trying to teach you. I hope that you have gained, you have benefited tremendously. I am very, very glad that you are here. You are part of this class. I can't wait for you to go through the clarity kit that we have for you today. It's a powerful tool it's a powerful reflective tool, very powerful. Just look through it, work with it, and I'll see you again in the next class. Bye-bye. This course was brought to you by TALA, which is an acronym for the African Lady Ambassador. TALA is a coaching and mentoring institute organized for young, passionate, vibrant, and driven African ladies. This course is a self-discovery course at TALA that is aimed at helping those who are on a quest to discover themselves, to unlock their potentials, and to live purposeful, authentic, and fulfilled lives. I hope you completely enjoyed this module. My name is Mary Jane Ubaja, and I look forward to hosting you in the next class.